Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah and it is almost May. So it is time to pick out my monthly TBR throwing knives. Okay, so first and foremost, let's go over how I did in April. So I had these 7 books that my kids picked out for me. I had 6 prompts, one of which was a kid's pick, so each of my kids chose a book for that. And I also had a reward that I could use if I wanted to from last month. That was a save for later, which I will be using. Okay, so the first one that I had was the Final Girl Support Group, and this was for a book with chapter titles. I did read this, and I gave it 3 stars. I think I'm going to hold off on any more Grady Hendrix for a while, because they're just kind of middle of the road for me. I enjoy them, they're fine, there's nothing wrong with them, but they're not favorites for me. So I think I'm going to hold off on reading any more Grady Hendrix for the time being. The next book that I had was Crazy House. This was for a reread. This is a YA dystopian, and I did read this. I gave it 2 stars this time around, like a 2.75. It was perfectly fine, but it was just, everything was too easy. You know, the characters come up against a problem, and then a chapter or 2 later, it's solved, everything's fixed, and everything works out fantastic. So it was fine, but it just wasn't what I remembered it being, and I enjoyed it a lot more when I was still reading more YA books. The next one that I had was God Killer by Hannah Kaner. This was one of the kids' picks, and I did read this one. It was a kids' pick for Start a New Series, and I did read this one, and I really enjoyed it. I have the second book that I have started, and I think I'm like 100 pages into it. Not super far, but I am reading the second book now, and I really enjoyed this book. I gave it like a 4 stars. The other kids pick for Start a New Series, my other son chose The Fellowship of the Ring. This is book 1 for Lord of the Rings. And this is the one that I am going to use my save for later on. I tried to start reading this one and I just wasn't in the mood for it at all. This wasn't the kind of epic fantasy that I was wanting to read right now. So I am going to put this one back on my shelf for the time being, and hopefully I will pick it up later on this year. The next book that I read was The Chalk Man. This is by CJ Tudor. This was for a booktuber favorite. This was a runner-up for Sid from Sid Bookworm. For Sydney, it was one of her honorable mentions for 2023 Best Books of the Year. And I read this one. I gave it 3 stars. I thought that it was fine. It was surprising. It was interesting. It just kind of, I don't know. I don't even know how to describe this one. It was interesting and it was good, but it just wasn't, it was too slow for me personally. Like, you get a lot of atmosphere and whatnot with that, but it just felt like it was way too slow for me and I didn't get super into it. So I gave this one 3 stars. The next one that I had was The Dead Romantics. This is for one of my library recommended, and I gave this one 4 stars. I had a really good time with it. I liked the storyline, I liked the family aspects of it, and I liked the relationship that built. I also liked the way that things worked out in the end, and yeah, so I had a really good time with this book. I didn't realize until I had already finished this one that this is the same author who wrote 7 Year Slip, and that's one that I keep hearing talked about all the time, and I did not realize they were the same author, so that might be one that I will have to look for in the future. And last but not least, the book that I chose for adapted was All the Light We Cannot See. This is by Anthony Doerr, and I finished this one this morning. I gave it 4 stars. It was really, really good, but it was extremely slow. If you want a really descriptive, beautifully written historical fiction about World War II, this is a fantastic choice. It is so interesting. One of the perspectives is from a girl who is a teenager during the war, that she is blind. She went blind when she was 6 years old. So it's her trying to navigate life in France during the war, being blind. I thought it was a very, very interesting perspective, and I really enjoyed this book. However, it was very slow and it's very long. It is 530 pages. But it was beautifully written, a very good book, and it was really interesting. And it's one that I think that could really rip your heartstring, like pull on your heartstrings, because it really makes you care about the characters. There's two main perspectives that you follow, but there are a couple of others thrown in there as well. And yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was a really great book. I will be passing this one along most likely to my dad because he's almost bought this one, and I've told him not to because I owned it. So overall, that is all the books that I had on my TBR. And since I did use that save for later, that means I technically did finish my TBR. Also, like I said, my kids each picked out a book for that particular prompt. So I had 2 books there instead of 1. So I have my jar with my rewards in it, and I will pick one of these out. I haven't put back save for later yet because I don't want to get that one all over again. But I am going to pick one of these. Let's see. What does that say? Change of prompts. So if I want to swap out one of these prompts for like a mood read, then if I want to, I can. So if I decide that one of these is not what I'm actually in the mood for, I can swap it out and do a mood read instead and have it count for that prompt. So now that we've gone over that, and by the way, Aurelium, my Aurelium picks for last month, I had God Killer for one career, and I read The Witch of Wild Things for another career, and that is it. So I can make things count. I'll have to look back through it, but overall I did not complete my Aurelium books like I wanted to. All right, so now that we have covered all of that, let's get into the throws for my TBR game. All right, so for my first throw, I got a fantasy, and for that one, I have decided to go with A Time of Blood. This is the second book in the Of Blood and Bone series by John Gwynne. This is his follow-up series to the Faithful and the Fallen series that I finished, and I read the first book, what was it, 2 months ago, I think? So I will be continuing on in this series. This, like I said, is like 100 years later or so in after the Faithful and the Fallen series, and angels have started wreaking havoc once again, or the angels and the demons have started causing problems, and things are starting to come to light. So I am going to continue on in this series. I really enjoy John Gwynne's writing. I really liked The Faithful and the Fallen. This series, I think I gave the first book, A Time of Dread, I think I gave that one 4 stars. It was still really good, and I really liked his writing, but it wasn't as good as the others. So I am going to continue on in this series. Next prompt that I got is a combination of a new release as well as an Instagram pic. Now, I was really hoping, and I could still do it if I want to, but I've just decided to hold off. I was hoping that I would have Ghost Station pop up on my Instagram when I did this, but of course, that is the newest release that I want to get and I have not bought yet. So I'm gonna hold off on getting that one for right now. I still really want to read Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes, but the one that did come up on my Instagram is also one that just recently came out, and that is The Women by Kristen Hanna. I don't know if you can really see that. There we go. This one is a historical fiction based in Vietnam, and I don't really know anything else more than that really about it, or I don't remember any more about it, but is a historical fiction based at Vietnam. And I'm really, really intrigued to try it. I've read couple of things by Kristen Hanna. Comfort and Joy was fine. The Nightingale was really, really good. So I'm excited to pick up another one of her historical fictions and see how it goes. Also, this is the first book that I have read that's been based around Vietnam. So I'm really excited for that. The next prompt that I got is set in a different country. And for this one, I decided to change things up a little bit. I have a ton of historical fictions that'll work for this, but I wanted to throw some romance in. And so I will be reading Jana Goes Wild by Farah Heron. This one is a second chance romance, I believe, between a girl and her, I think it's her ex-husband. It's her child's father, that they are overseas and she decides that she's gonna let loose and try and have a good time on this vacation, or I think it's a destination wedding. But she decides that she's gonna let loose and try and have a good time and just really enjoy herself, and he is there. And I believe it's going to be a second chance romance between the two. So I'm really excited to try this one out. And I thought it would be fun having a romance that's set in another country. This one, it says that it is in the Serengeti National Park. So I'm very excited for this one. Prompt that I got is a name in the title, and I decided to go with another historical fiction that I'm very excited to read, and that is Lady Tan's Circle of Women. This is by Lisa C. This one is a historical fiction that's set, I believe, in the 15th century. It doesn't say, but I believe that it's set like in early China. And it's about the start of women doctors over there and the fact that like men can't see blood or be around like blood with women or something like that, but the midwives and whatnot can. So I'm really curious to see how this one goes. Like I said, I don't remember a ton about it, but it's basically looking into early medicine in China. So I'm very excited to try this one out. All right, and the next prompt that I got is published in July. This one was not easy. I had to do a lot of research to find even a couple of books to choose from. And I already have 2 historical fictions on my TBR, so I didn't really want to go with a couple of the books that were options. So I decided to go with The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. And I've seen the movie, but I haven't read this yet, so I'm really curious to try it. This is about a 14-year-old girl, Susie Summers, who is murdered and comes back as a ghost, and she's trying to figure out what happened. And so I'm really curious. I believe it's a thriller, but either way, like, I'm really curious to try it out finally and see if I like the book compared to the movie. And I know the book is always better, but it's just kind of a different one. So I'm very excited to try this one out. And last but not least, my 6th prompt, I got a Riley pick, and that is my husband. And he was kind of a turd about it, and he told me to read the dictionary or to read a thesaurus, just trying to be a turd. But last night I finally got him to give me a couple of options, and that was either The Lost War by Justin Lee Anderson. He recently read this one, and The Bitter Crown, the second book, and liked them. Or, of course, Christopher Paolini. This is Murtagh. This came out back in November, and is a follow-up to the Inheritance cycle that he came out with years and years ago. And this is like a continuation slash spin-off for the Aragon series. So between the two of these books, neither one of them is very small, but I am going to go with Murtagh by Christopher Paolini because I loved the Inheritance cycle. This is one of my husband's favorite series of all time. And I was really excited to try this one out after he finished it, and I just haven't had the opportunity to pick it up yet. So I will be reading Murtagh by Christopher Paolini in May. Alright guys, so that is it. These are the 6 books that I will be reading or attempting to read in May, as well as any others that I read for any vlogs and whatnot. But here we are. I have a couple of historical fictions, couple fantasies, a romance, and a thriller in here. So a little bit of everything, which is my favorite thing to see in a TBR, is that way I can kind of pick things up as my mood changes. And I'm really excited to try all of these. So let me know if you have read any of these books or all of these books, what you liked, what you didn't like, if you have any recommendations for me. Also, please, if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe down below. I will have my Instagram, my Amazon wish list, and whatnot linked in there as well. And I hope you have a great reading month and a great rest of your April. Bye.